All year round, Frontier Home Products and Design has what you need to make your home comfortable and beautiful. Relax on a new timber tech deck designed by Frontier's experts. A new fireplace from Frontier Home Products Fireplace Gallery adds warmth and serenity to any home. Beauty and versatility at Frontier Home Products and Design Center, 4213 Peachtree, 5th next to the Bayfront Highway.
Frontier Home Products and Design Center. Discover a new frontier.
PA contractor number PA039007.
You have been called
to do good,
to feed the hungry,
to love with action,
to be a light in the darkness,
to love your neighbor,
to teach wisdom,
to walk humbly,
to love mercy,
to care for the least of these.
Will you accept the call?
This is our city.
Our mission.
Visit eriecitymission.org/volunteer to accept the call today.
Welcome to TalkErie.com's Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast. Every day, we tackle the biggest issues that the Erie, PA region faces. Stay informed and involved as we advance the narrative of Erie. Now, here's Joel Natale.
I'm excited to welcome to the show here Richard Rutkowski. He is the director, the creator of Pauline From 2 to 3. I want to make sure I get this right here, but let's say hello to Richard. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Hello. Nice to see you.
All righty here. The Pauline From 2 to 3, a documentary film about the remarkable life of Erie centenarian Pauline Rutkowski. So, you being Richard, who is Pauline to you?
Pauline is my grandmother. She's my paternal grandmother.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the Rutkowski family here in Erie. Again, you're that's not where you live now, right?
I live in New York City, and I never really lived in Erie.
Okay.
Although I've grown quite attached to the city since the beginnings of this project, and also since my grandmother's 100th birthday. Three things about this film. One, it is for everybody. It is not just a family documentary. It speaks to a lot of issues, which we'll get into in this talk. Two, it is about Pauline. Three, she's worth it. She's worth your time. She's worth the hour. She's a remarkable human.
I love how you say that because, Erie is one of those cities, and there's a lot of cities like ours, but it felt like there, once there was an anchor to come to Erie. I would imagine you guys are of Polish descent, right?
Yes.
What is it?
Yes.
Yes,
Polish.
Of course. Yeah, Polish.
Totally.
So once there's an anchor, right, where they come for, quote, the GE or one of our industries back 100 years ago, and then the family just grows, and the cousins come, and the aunts come, and maybe they send for the parents, from the old country and so on. And then all of a sudden you have, little Poland, in Erie, and like we had little Italy in Erie. I mean, and it just, you build this community. Was that kind of what Pauline experienced? When did she get to Erie, or was she born in Erie?
She was born near Pittsburgh.
Okay.
You've described this element of the diaspora perfectly, but you've neglected to mention the fertility. So,
sorry.
It's true.
It's true, right?
It's true. Pauline was one of 12 on a farm in Edinburgh. Her future husband, Benjamin, was one of 14 on a farm in Waterford. Do the math. Yes. And you wind up with basically an entire zip code of humans. And we call it in the family Polish contraception. The young women were either pregnant or not, and that's where it goes.
That's fabulous. Wow.
And I'm describing it because there were stillborns, early deaths. So we're talking about turn of the century Depression era farming. And so on my grandfather Benjamin's side, it was a dairy farm, inherited eventually by his brother Khaki, who's really Casimir, but everybody called him Khaki. And on Pauline's side, it was a subsistence farm purchased in the moment of need, which was when her father endured his second mine collapse in the coal mines outside Pittsburgh. So he had been a coal miner, and he had thought of going back to Poland. His wife, also from Poland, said, no, I want to be in America. I want my kids to grow up in America. Pauline was the fourth. Well, was it fourth or fifth?
I think fifth.
She was the fifth of 12 children.
Wow.
And moved at age 4 to Edinburgh to be on the farm where her father was insistent that he never be in a mine collapse again. And that was that.
There is something to be said about Erie being a refuge to these extraction industries in the early 20th century. I don't know if anyone has really researched this, but when you think about, because my family has a similar story, both of my grandfathers were miners in the Scranton Wilkes-Barre area. You know that,
Scranton.
Yeah,
Wow.
And there stuff happened to people in the mines, and my
Yes.
my maternal grandfather was in the hospital in Philadelphia for 6 months and said, I'm never going back, and started becoming an entrepreneur. But Erie was the draw because we made stuff
Right.
from this raw material that the miners extracted, or, that the steel mills, built, iron bars or rolled steel or whatever,
That's very much a part of the story we tell. And we tell the story on, I would offer we tell the story on 2 separate tracks at the same time. And one is where we parallel Erie's history with Pauline's personal history. She came to Erie essentially as a 4-year-old living in Edinburgh, but really what happened is she came to Erie to work as a 16-year-old with I think a 10th grade education. And it was the Depression, and it was 1936, and she needed to work, and it's well told in the film. And I do want to encourage everyone to reach out at the end and figure out how they can see this film, because we are going to be back in August to do another preview screening. But the point is, the one track of the film describes Pauline as representative of the fortunes of Erie, not only in her childhood, but in her adolescence, and then further in her young adulthood, and then in her older adulthood, where Erie had a decline, and her life mirrors that.
Wow.
In many respects, in the lives of her children and grandchildren. Then we also tell the rather personal is the wrong word, because I believe Pauline is not of this generation, and she doesn't think about herself the same way. So it's a story of survival.
Yeah.
It's a story, ultimately, of a woman's role in the greatest generation.
I have to ask you at the front end here, and maybe it's inappropriate, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What is the from 2 to 3?
Okay, good question. Pauline experiences her 102nd and 103rd years on camera. We began the film on her 102nd birthday. We continued it through the majority of her 103rd year. In the tail credits, we see her on her 104th birthday. Wow. And actually, today's the 30th. She had her 104th birthday 1 month and 1 day ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's
going strong. She's going strong. She lives in East Erie. She was at the preview screening that we held a week and 2 days ago. She was there on her feet, getting up, talking to people, speaking afterwards. It was totally life affirming. And really, for your viewers, or I guess it's not viewers, I'm so biased. I'm a TV guy.
I get
for
you.
Your listeners, for your intelligent daytime listeners who are hearing this moment, come to the trek, the Tom Ridge Environmental Center on the 21st of August, and you'll get to experience the full bout of Erie's poster girl for 23andMe. She is the 23andMe poster girl Erie edition, and she's incredible.
Yeah, you talk about the concept of a super ager. What's your definition of that? How can people understand that?
It's not my definition, and it was something I had to learn about in the course of making the film. I knew my grandmother had had an enormous longevity. I knew that she'd had great luck with her health and great luck with her abilities to an extreme age. I didn't know that it was actually a term in medicine. She is a super ager because at 104, she has no serious physical, mental, or psychological impairment. She reads blood work. Yes, my producer is reminding me. She has the blood work of a 25-year-old, as stated on camera.
I mean, there's some of us that are, well, I'm in my early 60s, but some of us that are in our 40s that take maintenance drugs, right?
Yes.
I mean, so she's not on that. Wow.
No, her maintenance is a single iron pill a day.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow. And again, is it growing up in the farm, understanding how to cook, regular exercise, and you staying away from the processed foods? I mean, what do you think it is? How do you get to that point?
It's all of the above, and there are 4 pillars of longevity discussed by our expert doctor, which is basically Pauline's personal physician. And he breaks it down in ways that are very, in a humorous way. And this is a humorous film. It is not an overly serious or impending problem film. It's actually an uplifting film. It is the combination of good habits and great attitude. And part of that great attitude is being able to say, something bad happened, but I'm okay and I'll go on. Or I could not have changed that, so I go on. As it lays in front of me, the world is still the world I live in, and I will continue to live in it. She also likes to do things every darn day. So she's up and doing something every day, and she's reading and she's painting her deck. Until very recently, she mowed her own lawn. On camera, she's shoveling snow. Oh my word. And she's cooking. And when you go to her birthday, it is not unusual that you're sitting down, you're talking to your relatives, you're having a nice time, and a hand reaches the birthday cake slice in front of you, and it's Pauline's.
Wow. It occurs to me not to get too clinical because I'm not a doctor by any stretch of the imagination, but I talk to a lot of doctors, right? And, inflammation is a killer. And yes. It seems like, and stress is one of the great causes of inflammation.
That's correct.
It seems like she has got it down pat on how to manage stress and to have a balanced outlook on life, and that reduces the inflammation.
Yes, and that was actually in the New York Times today, in an article on aging in the New York Times today. And because of this project, I've looked up many articles and many books on aging. There's a very good one called Lifespan, in which they describe aging as a disease, and a disease that's curable. I'll get you the author in a moment.
Yeah.
But the reality, wait, do I have it right here? No, I don't. But the reality is, Pauline's ability to be the last surviving member of not only her own nuclear family, but the 14 children of her husband's family with their husbands and wives. And she's survived several of her own children. And so while that is in the film and is not, we don't pull a punch on that, that is a hard thing to watch. She is a person who finds good in the community around her. She likes people. She likes to be around people. She likes to be seen and heard, and she listens. I think it's emblematic of who she is and how she grew up. She raised a bunch of really interesting kids too, and they're pretty much all on camera in one form or another. Some of them were deceased when I started, including my own father. So that was a motivator for making the film, because I, of course, wanted to know, like, what was the drive inside my dad. He caught a lung cancer and died early. But her surviving children, Kathy and Jimmy, are also just incredibly hard workers, like serious up and doing it every day. And it's remarkable to watch. And of course, it isn't everyone, and it isn't every generation. So I think that there's a generational aspect to the film. And weirdly, I'm told, and I'm in my late 50s, I'm told that a younger generation now is on TikTok, on Instagram, connecting to older examples of living. And I think that Pauline well represents what can be learned from a generation that is vanishing.
Richard, I want to get into the filmmaking process. Friends of ours are Mike and Erica Berlin. Erica is involved with the Erie Film, Greater Erie Film Society. We're trying to have a burgeoning film industry here based in Erie. We're trying to get artisans and specialists, audio recorders and lighting techs and best boys and key grips and all that stuff. First off, how was it? Did you have to bring your own crew to come to Erie? Were you able to tap into some of the Erie talent? And how did you get started with the actual filmmaking process with this? Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, well, a little of my background is that I'm a cinematographer. Okay. So I've been working at this point over 35 years. Wow. As either a camera assistant or an operator, cinematographer, and sometimes I've helped people on other projects. But the basic reality is I knew how to get a movie made. It's all I do for a living. And I knew that when I was coming to Erie, I would have to find sound recordists. That was a first biggie. And then if possible, lighting technicians and grips, because I wanted to light the setups with my grandmother and family to look at a quality that could be on any broadcast or streaming outlet. I was very fortunate. I found Robert Frank. And Robert Frank has a company called R. Frank Media. And Robert is really capable on many levels. He's a camera person himself. He has a great lighting kit that he uses for various, jobs around the area. And he has the know-how, and he has people in his office who know how to do things. It was a great find. And he was also very into the project. And when you're making a personal documentary, especially about a centenarian, and you're going to be in her home and around her home, it was very important to me that the vibe and the sort of chemistry of who was around and what the situation was like was conducive to getting her to talk and having her feel relaxed. And at that time, her oldest son was living with her. That was my uncle Barney. And he's an avuncular guy, but even he was like, holy cow, you guys are coming in with a lot of stuff. I was very fortunate that Robert was on the project. He was totally a pro. And when he couldn't be there in person, he would always find someone to show up for us. And that was a first huge step. Through Robert, I met Mike Berlin, and I hadn't known Mike Berlin before this, but he's a filmmaker. I mean, he has done Chronicle for years. Before that, he's done other projects. He's got skills in directing, writing, camera, lighting. He sometimes would come in and record sound when we were stuck. And it's that spirit that it really is indie filmmaking. And there used to be indie filmmaking in New York in the true sense. And that's the process I came up through, working on little films, micro budget films, and then getting on to Miramax films and things like that. But the group that got formed around me coming to Erie once every couple months was a fantastic group. And it was through Mike that I met his wife, Erica. And Erica has a lot of skill sets in producerial and also administrative and also fundraising, thankfully, because it all costs money. And the team formed kind of organically. And the best thing I can say about working in Erie is that just kept happening to the point where I stopped feeling like we're just lucky, and I started feeling like this is what this town is. Like we would walk into Urbaniak's Market. Right. We'd meet not some middle management or some like assistant. We'd meet the Urbaniak brothers. Yep. And I'd explain to them in as short a possible a time what I wanted to do. And they'd say, sure thing. And then I'd say, oh, and can I steal you for a few minutes to talk because you guys are amazing? And they'd talk for like half an hour. And while they spoke, it was true communication. I was learning from them. And then as they learned more about Pauline and they realized, oh, Pauline's been into this market for decades, they got very interested. And they're one of the sort of premier sidebar characters, in that I don't say sidebar diminutively, I mean in that way that you prop up the stage of Pauline by learning what's around her. So
that's tremendous. I love that you're finding that we are developing this filmmaking ecosystem, just so that we can give our young, our 20-somethings some hope of saying, hey, you can go, and start out with that camera and make stuff happen.
It's far easier. It's far easier than when I started. I started on film. I started on 16 millimeter, and you would send your film to the lab and wait a couple days and get the rushes back, and then you'd have to edit on film. Now, some part of me is nostalgic for it.
Right.
It would have been a bear to get this work finished with that process. I'm very glad for I own digital cameras. Other people gave me digital cameras to work with. And throughout that process, I realized, for documentary at this point in time in this nation with these technologies around us, this is the way to go.
Get paid to drive. Start a new career behind the wheel at the EMTA. If you are looking for a high-paying and rewarding career with full benefits and paid training, stop by or apply online today with the EMTA. Plus, EMTA riders can now enjoy free Wi-Fi on new, clean, and environmentally friendly buses to travel all over Erie County. Visit ridethee.com for more information.
Get on board EMTA. Get on board EMTA.
Quickfill gasoline is made right here in America. United Refining Company, who operates Quickfill, refines its gasoline from North American crude oil in Warren, Pennsylvania. When you buy United Refining Company gasoline at Quickfill, you keep jobs and businesses in America. And you keep American families strong. You don't need to send your money overseas when you buy gasoline. Buy American-made gasoline at Quickfill. Quickfill, driving America.
You had something to share with young budding filmmakers. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I'm glad we had a chance to catch up on that. It's kind of a golden era. If you have the ambition, the willpower, and quite frankly, the patience to go out and make a project, the cameras are there. They're not hard to get hold of, or you can rent them for small sums from these various gig rentals. And they do a good job. What I often advise young filmmakers to do is to look at the work you like and then turn the sound off and look at it again. Watch it without sound. And then if you really still like it, if you've still watched it without sound and said, this is still very good visual and I really get the story even without the words, put a little mark in the center of your screen and watch it one more time. And then you're going to see what the camera operator did. And you may not have noticed the first couple times around because the job of the camera operator is to be quite subtle. You'll also be able to break down how many shots were actually in a sequence. Because let's say you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark and you think there's just so many shots in a sequence. I can tell you that Spielberg and his cameraman, who was Douglas Slocum, a notoriously brilliant British cameraman of the era, they use the fewest shots possible. They have the fewest shots to build a sequence, and you'll learn that simply by watching. The reason I bring up this sort of ancient history is that then you train yourself to understand what you need to do as camera person or as filmmaker to create a sequence and have it cogently explain to the audience your point. And that's the whole thing. Don't think that it's about flashy lighting. Don't think that it's about flashy costumes. Those things are lovely, but they aren't the story. The story is conveyed in a visual language, and you'll learn it. I'm hoping to do a sort of workshop in Erie in September. It's still being sorted out. If I can do it, I'm so excited to come to the community have young filmmakers come and talk to me about it. I've done this kind of work for the American Society of Cinematographers and for different colleges, and it's always very illuminating to me as well. One other thing I would say is a lot of people think the camera does everything. It doesn't. There's a sound recording device. It may be the camera itself, but it's got to be connected to a good way of taking in the sound, or you're going to have some issues with making your edit work out. People, when they watch content, are very forgiving of jump cuts and rapid cutting and even cuts that don't necessarily go together. Like, especially in documentary, we can cut from almost any kind of content to another kind of content. They are unforgiving of problems with sound.
Wow.
My voice is not heard clearly. If my voice isn't communicating clearly across the edits, I'm going to have an issue keeping that audience with me. Similarly, when you do the mix, and I spent a lot of time on the mix of this film because we had different archival sources mixed with music, mixed with dialogue, mixed with occasional sound effects, mixed sometimes, and I think this is important to understand too, with silence, because you've got to give audience a little sherbet in between the courses. You've got to let them have a quiet moment so that the next round of information is equally well told.
One more thing about the industry and where filmmaking is at, and maybe filmmaking in Erie. This is just my editorial comment. I'm very concerned about where AI is in on all this, because I'm just seeing stuff that even I feel like I have a trained eye and I'm getting hoodwinked. Okay. And, to me, the origin of an AI piece is someone's intellectual property. Where are you at with AI these days?
Maybe I'm an outlier. I think it's a little bit laughable. I think, sure, if I want to see a dog dressed up and in the A-Team, singing in the rain, in the accent of Harry Belafonte, let's go to AI, because that's going to be hard for me to do. But if I want to have a conversation with you, Mr. Natalie, there's no AI that can do what you've been doing for the last 39 minutes.
Yes.
And the reason there isn't is because it has to learn from us what the content really is. And then it has to learn from us what the connections really are. And it will always be behind. So you try and show me AI that's ahead of us. And maybe it'll be ahead of us in some very interesting ways. Maybe it will cure gum disease. Maybe it will cure diabetes. Maybe it will tell us what horse will win in the 5th race. And maybe it will be more accurate than the impulses of a human being. It will not communicate in the same way, and we'll know it. And I think people, when they see AI generated imagery, at some gut level know it. And part of that was a thing I call ontology. It's not I call it, it's a science. It's called the science of the real. And there's something called ontological authenticity. So Pauline, early in the film, walks down the front steps of her house and to her car, and she gets into her car, and at 102 years old, she drives to Tops Market. Okay, that wouldn't be so hard for AI to show us, and it would mean nothing.
Right.
We watch a 102-year-old driving. She's got a song on the radio. It's a funny-ass song. Come to the movie and you'll see it. And it's just like, wow, that song came on, and here she is driving to the market, and she's 102. Wow. And then she's at her 102nd birthday, and there's all these kids in the pool. Gene pool, get it? Mm. AI wouldn't have come up with that. I'm really sorry. I mean, I truly credit it with helping me take the train. But other than that,
I'm not too concerned about it as far as...
No, because in the end, people are narcissistic. They want to see themselves. They don't want to see a computer-generated version of me or you or even Brad Pitt. They want to see Brad Pitt get in an F1 car and drive around, and they're willing to pay hundreds of millions to make it, and then they just hope that hundreds of millions of dollars will come in to watch it. It could have so easily been done in AI. That's a face that's been out there for decades. And, those cars are recorded all the time. But, not to plug another movie while F1 is out, and I know Claudio Miranda, who shot F1, and he's a brilliant artist. Senna. Senna was made up entirely of documentary footage about Ayrton Senna, an F1 driver, and it is incredible. And there's no AI that does that.
Fantastic. Well, we've got like about less than 8 minutes now with Richard Rutkowski. I want to talk about, you mentioned the themes of family, of, about Pauline and about Erie. And I want you to kind of home in on what you're hoping people to learn. First off, in general, in documentaries, is this all about educating or shedding new light on something when you create a documentary, or can they, what's always the end game, the return on investment, if you will, when you're making a documentary?
Wow, that's an incredible question. And I don't want to sidestep it, but I'm not sure I have a singular answer to it. I believe that the power of documentary is that at least for some period of it, you're watching something really happening. Now, it's inevitable that you're going to be somewhat manipulated by the filmmaker's narrative. So there's a wonderful director of fiction films who also makes brilliant documentaries named Werner Herzog. And Werner Herzog did a tribute to his lead actor from many films, Klaus Kinski. He calls it My Best Fiend, F-I-E-N-D. Now, I'm not on streaming yet, so I will sell Mr. Herzog's work right now. Go see My Best Fiend, and while you're at it, see Grizzly Man. And that sense of humor is very much influential on me as a documentarian, not because I'm telling quite so hyperbolic a story, and because I'm in family, I have to limit a little bit the excesses I could go to if it was someone else's centenarian grandmother. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I wanted an upbeat and humorous way of looking at aging and family and the city of Erie in ways that the people of that region, Northwest Pennsylvania, could relate to. And I think in the end, thankfully, we've come up with a story that lots of people can relate to. Aging is a universal trait of being human. Having parents is a human trait. Having grandparents, a human trait. But what we discover with Pauline being on the other side of an enormous arc, I mean, she's 45 years older than I am now. Wow. I've been working 36 years. I mean, the math is almost ludicrous. She has 30 great-great-grandchildren. By the time I finish this sentence, there might be another. It happens. Wow. And then she has 25 great-grandchildren. We have frames of her with her family, 5 generations on screen at once. So, but point is, when we told this story, we started to realize this is a regional story and it's a universal story at the same time, because everyone cares about their aging parents. Everybody worries about how to take care of aging parents. Equally, if you're the aged, if you're getting past 90 and past 100, you're worried about your descendants. You're losing parts of your generation around you. And yet you start to, it's human nature, involve yourselves in the lives of your children and their children. And Pauline is a great example of someone for whom that's a total positive. She relates beautifully to family. She takes power from it.
Did she experience significant grief when her first offspring passed?
Yeah. Well, that's my dad. That's a hard one to judge because I was experiencing significant grief and I was also sublimating it at the same time. So it's a funny process. It lasts for years. I know she was unhappy to see someone get sick, and then she lost a daughter not just a few years later. Maybe it was like 12 years later. It seemed like a short amount of time. Her survival mechanism is simply, and she says it, to stay busy, to stay active, to look at each day as your next opportunity to do something and not to change the things you cannot change. Don't worry yourself thin over what isn't going to be in your power to work with. However, she's very empathic as a human being. She's a great communicator.
It's amazing, Richard, when you think about it, because another person of her age could assess her life of just being that accumulation of losses.
Correct.
She lost her siblings. She lost her husband. She's losing children. I mean, I think my mother, who just passed last year at 95 and a half, she was so worried, though, about outliving one of her kids. That would be a mind explosion. But it seems like Pauline has accepted this special lot that God has her in. She you know what I mean? It's like this is her lot in life, that she's going to live and be an example to others.
I'm not sure she views it as I'm the example or I'm special. I'm sure she views it as you can't do anything about that. You should live through it, and you comfort those around you. And she finds a way. There's a section of the film, and again, the 21st of August at the Trek Center, we're having a preview screening. It is not a premiere because we have a premiere planned, but there's a special preview screening that will benefit the film and Erie as a arts culture. And you can go on PaulineFrom2to3.com. It's the number 2, the number 3, and you can see information about it. But the thing you say, and we have a section in the film called the caretaker gene, and it's about the inheritance of this trait where you take care of those around you.
Wow. I'm going to let you go there because we got down to 1 minute. Once again, it's Pauline from 2 to 3, a special preview, right? Not a premiere, but a special preview. When do you think that the final rollout will be for this film, and where do you see it ending up? Is this something that you could see at Amazon or something like that, or?
It'll be in every estimation of how good it is. Will be all over the world.
Amazing. Well, yeah, you enter these things, right? I mean,
it will go to festivals, and then it will go to market, and I believe we have a leg up in certain respects, and we'll be able to show this in very good streaming content or potentially even broadcast. I'm very fortunate in that I work in the film business in fiction. And so I'm able to see things a little differently than most documentarians. I'm able to see the film in its entertainment value, and it is very entertaining and funny. And I think that that's going to be its calling card, is a populist entertainment, which leaves you in the end moved, but also quite entertained and humming a tune at the end. I won't reveal which tune.
August 21st at the Trek at the Tom Ridge Educational Center. Thank you so much, Richard Rutkowski. Thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to The Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast from TalkErie.com. Subscribe to our show on your favorite podcatcher and get involved by emailing joel@TalkErie.com.